Hignet's corner, beyond Bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, flips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises! It just had to be! Dack's corner and it goes, Glance towards goal! And Rovers have taken the lead! And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season. It may well be the goal that sends Rovers back into the Championship.
Hello Rovers fans and welcome at last to another edition of On the Other Side, live with me, Ryan Hildred from Rovers Chat. It's felt like a long couple of weeks since our last live shows, especially for those of you that have just completed day 9 of your homeschooling. So I'm very happy to be back doing the live stream. So disappointingly, it was we got knocked out of the FA Cup last time out, so we can focus on the league, as the old adage goes, tongue-in-cheek, of course, there. So we return to league action tomorrow as we entertain Stoke City at Ewood Park, back in the league. And last time we didn't have a Stoke fan with us. We had to borrow Justin from the Second Tier podcast, but I am delighted this time that we do have a Stoke City fan with us. We have got Harvey from the We Are Stoke fan page. How are you doing, Harvey?
I'm not too bad. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. As I say, it's been a testing week going back to homeschooling, but football is my fix. So we'll spend the next hour just chatting about Rovers and Stoke, I think. So Rovers fans, just a few reminders and a couple of plugs before we start. So we've not been that busy with the live content in the last couple of weeks, but we have been very busy with the non-live and video content across the channels. So the first thing, you may have seen Jonathan Secker's first show, the transfer special that he did yesterday. That went live on our channel today. So check that one out. And tomorrow, immediately before our pre-match live stream, we will be premiering a special edition of our stats show with Andy Watson and Joe Harvey as they look at our new signing, Jared Branthwaite. And just to say, Andy will be live in the comments on YouTube with that video. So do interact with Andy and let them know what you think about that video. It has been a couple of weeks, so hopefully you've not forgotten how to comment and interact with us this evening. So do get your comments in. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, it is Rovers Chat on YouTube. And of course, on Twitter, we are Rovers_chat. But without further ado, we have to do a little message to our sponsors, 6yardsout.com.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.
Thanks as ever to 6yardsout.com for their very, very kind sponsorship this season. So good to see some of the old names back in the comments. El Scotty, hello, evening everyone. Alexander Haben, Harvey, you can pick this one up in a bit. Can Rovers break the wall? And Dizzy Thumbs, who is our dedicated fan down in Tasmania, Australia, Harvey. Good morning from Dizzy Thumbs, who is probably warmer than the rest of us down under. So Harvey, let's kick off with the match preview then. As I said, I spoke to Justin from the Second Tier podcast last time for the away game that we had against you last month. And I mentioned to him that Stoke this season felt very similar to where Rovers were, probably in around 14-15 season. So I want to ask you the same question that I asked Justin. We were relegated from the Premier League after 11 seasons in it, and you had 10 seasons in the Premier League. Things didn't quite go our way after relegation from the Premier League. We came 17th, then 8th. You came 15th and then 16th. And then with the parachute payment money, I remember at that time, it felt like for us that we had to get up before things started unravelling a bit. We came 9th in that season in 14-15. And as I say, things did unravel and eventually we did go to League One. Is there that feeling amongst the Stoke fans this season that there is a bit of that last chance and you've got to use that parachute money well?
I wouldn't say it's probably last chance. We have very, very wealthy owners who have got deep pockets. So the parachute money isn't. Obviously, it's important for a Championship club, but being a Stoke fan, it doesn't feel like the last chance. Personally, I think next season will be a better chance of going up, because as we look at the Premier League table at the moment, you've got Fulham up there, West Brom, two yo-yo teams. Whereas if this season we can get rid of Norwich, Swansea, Bournemouth, or Watford, or one of them sort of teams, you get rid of them more difficult teams to play against, as everyone's found out this season, and suddenly the automatics open back up for you.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's wide open this season, and I think it will just keep getting more and more wide open as the seasons pass. I do think that Premier League parachute money is going to cause a bit of havoc, just teams going up and down, and as teams, Barnsley I've given a lot of credit to this season. As teams like that get new football philosophies, it does make it wide open. So I think you're right, it might be next season that you go for it. And in the last preview that we did, Harvey, and again I want to ask you a couple of questions. We spoke really highly about Michael O'Neill, and actually, because of Michael O'Neill, I actually had Stoke in my pre-season prediction to make the playoffs. So I've got two questions for you, as I say. So the first one, how happy are Stoke fans with Michael O'Neill and the job that he's done?
We're absolutely delighted with him. If we throw it back to November 2019, on our way off to Barnsley, I think I predicted a 2-1 win. That was just me being optimistic, but I felt if we'd have lost that game, I think it would have all just spiralled into an absolute disaster last season. Whereas, we got a really important win in a 6-pointer. By Christmas, we were out of the relegation zone, and then we pushed on to finish, I think it was 15th in the end, actually. And then obviously building on this season, we've had a fantastic cup run in the Carabao Cup. Including pre-season, we've had a 2/3 win rate against Premier League sides in all competitions, and we've played 6 games, and we've only been beaten against Tottenham and Leicester, who are currently in the Champions League spot. So it's not that bad. So yeah, we've been fantastic. We were a lot more solid defensively, and we've had quite a few games where we've scored over 3 goals, which is something we didn't do for just getting on 2 years, when we actually scored 4 at Barnsley. That was the first time since December 2017 that we'd actually scored more than 3 goals. So, we're looking a lot better at both ends of the pitch, and the players are just a lot more confident because they're in the natural positions. Whereas when Nathan Jones was in charge, we had James McLean playing at left back, and all sorts. It was a disaster, Nathan Jones. But back onto Michael O'Neill. The only way is up with him.
Indeed. And the second question I want to ask you, Harvey, we've had a lot of focus on our channel, probably over the last 2 to 3 weeks, about the last block of 12 games, which we'll come on to in a moment, but then the top 12's record against each other. And I'm going to bring up this one here, which I think just illustrates, what Michael O'Neill brings. So Stoke's record, you're 5th out of the 12 clubs in the games that we've all had against each other. You've had 5 wins, 2 draws, and 4 defeats. And if you look at Rovers there, down at the bottom, just 8 points against the teams in and around us and in that top half. Rovers have got loads of plaudits this season for the way that we play and the attacking football we play. But ultimately, this is a results business, isn't it? And if I think about Michael O'Neill and what he brought to Northern Ireland in those big games, I can see that playing out in these stats. When it matters, Stoke go and get some good results. Is that the perception that Stoke fans have got as well, that when you've needed to get these results, you've picked them up? And do you feel like a team that gets the job done when it matters? Yeah,
I 100% agree with that. We're very difficult to beat. It'll probably bite me in the backside tomorrow, but we are difficult to beat this season. Looking at that record, we've only lost to the teams above us on that table, drawn against Barnsley and lost against Bristol City. So, and everyone else we've beaten. So, we've been brilliant this season so far against sides around us. And if it was something similar to that around the end of the season, I'd be more than happy with it. Because considering you probably wouldn't have put your money on Bournemouth and Watford getting relegated last season, and some of the players that they've got, that they've still got from the Premier League, very similar to when we first came down. We kept a lot of big names, Jack Butland, Joe Allen, players like that. So yeah, we've been decent against the clubs higher up, but some games we have been a little bit sloppy at times. You think Swansea, we created absolutely nothing. Bournemouth, we weren't too great either. Watford should have been a draw, but I don't know if you saw Angus Gunn getting barged over the line and Ismail Assar's handball in the run up to their winner. Yeah, it was an absolute mess that Watford game was. But yeah, I'd probably say we've been robbed, in quotation marks, robbed of about 5 points out of them, so it's not too bad.
Just before we move on to the next question, there's been a little quiz going on in the comments. So Ollie James asked a quiz question for you. Can you name the former Blackburn and Stoke player that won the World Cup? I think Scott Taylor has got the answer. I can't multitask clearly because I never would have plucked Nzonzi out of the air. I think it is Nzonzi, but Ollie, it is. Ollie will confirm in the comments as well. So good little quiz there, Ollie. I like that. So Harvey, we're going to move on to the other interesting slide that we've got. So the other thing that we have covered is then the results in the last 12. So where we're saying that Stoke do well in the teams in and around them, and you were high on that last table, this next one, actually, you're further down towards the bottom. So the number of points that you've picked up in the last 12 games since that November international break, just 17 points you've picked up, which is one less than Rovers. And if we think about some of the comments that there's been on our live streams as well, there's been a lot of criticism for Rovers in that period as well. What's the assessment amongst the Stoke fans at the moment about your recent form? Have you seen a dip in form? What's the story there behind this recent form?
There's only one man it's an absolute huge void up front, and it's Tyrese Campbell. He got injured against Cardiff in the last 6 games. We've been a shadow of our former selves. We've not created anything up front, barely. We've not really had any. I've just got the results up here. We scored 1 against Nottingham Forest directly from a corner, Jordan Thompson. The goal against you was McLean? No, it wasn't McLean.
Nick Powell, I think it was.
Nick Powell, that was the one. Diving header. So we've only scored 2 goals in the league since Tyrese Campbell got injured. 2 goals in the last 6. It says everything. That's one thing we are missing is power up front, and just being potent up front. I think it goes a long way in the Championship, whereas we haven't done anything. Obviously, the January window's here, and I would like to see us getting a striker. Done some fantastic business this week. Matondo, Clark, players like that. But yeah, Tyrese Campbell is a massive miss.
Yeah, and my next question, which I'm going to come on to, probably is reflective of Tyrese Campbell. So for the first time this season, I'm excited to say we can reflect on a previous match. So, we did lose 1-0 in the reverse fixture in December. Early Nick Powell goal. And then what we saw in that game really was Stoke just sit back and absorb that possession and pressure, call it pressure if you want, from Rovers. Sometimes it wasn't. Has that been the typical approach from O'Neill this season, probably particularly since Campbell got injured, get the lead and then sit on it?
Pretty much. Every time we've scored a goal, we have sort of sat back on it a little bit. We did it against Forest. Should have had more on that day anyway. Our defence this season has been fantastic. Harry Sutar is the one that really jumps out at me. He's been amazing. I think a lot of people are sort of debating on putting them in their team of the seasons. In the Championship, I saw the second tier podcast compare 2 teams, and Harry Sutar was in one of them. So, if you're sort of in and around the debate for that spot, you're doing something right. And James Chester, actually a surprise for me this season. We loaned him in at the back end of last season. Wasn't amazing. Whereas if it was my choice in the summer, I probably wouldn't have signed him on a free. But he's come back into the side after a little bit of a shaky start. He's come back in. I think it was against Sheffield Wednesday. So around these last 12 games, and he's been fantastic with Harry Sutar.
Absolutely, yeah. I've seen the plaudits for him as well, and he looks a decent player, absolutely. So if we look at your away form then, again, this is really interesting. I found your stats absolutely fascinating when I was doing the research before this show. Away from home, it's 4 wins, 5 draws, and just the 2 defeats. And also just 14 goals in those games. So 9 for you and 5 against. If we compare that to Rovers, we've scored 20 away from home and conceded 15. So your games are really tight. And ours are less so, and albeit those stats are massaged by a couple of 4-0 victories that we've had. So that suggests that Stoke, you're going to aim to keep it tight again at Ewood Park, aren't you? So how have the games gone this season when they have been tight? Against Rovers at home, you deliberately went and got that early goal from Nick Powell and then sat on it. So is that what you're going to try and do again? Or will you be more patient, maybe sit back, soak it up and try and nick that odd one at the end? How do you see it going?
It's going to be an interesting one because this will hopefully be Matondo's full debut. He come on in the Cup against Leicester last week, and potentially we'll have Jack Clark playing on the wing as well. So going up front, I'm not too sure what to expect, and it all depends on if Jacob Brown plays through the middle or Sam Vokes plays up front. I'm going to say if Sam Vokes plays, you're not really going to have anything to worry about. He's been awful the last couple of weeks. He missed a really easy chance from 6 yards out against Leicester last week. When it was 0-0, he puts that away and it's a different game. But hopefully we'll just score for fun past you. Obviously, I'm going to say that, but I honestly think it'll be a very boring game if we just shut up shop. Maybe go 5 at the back, but I can see us playing about 4, so I'm not too sure.
Well, we'll come on to our predictions at the end of the show, but I agree it'll be a boring game because I don't know if you've seen the state of our pitch. It's not good at the moment. It's certainly not conducive with playing flowing football, and we found out the hard way against Doncaster, actually. We just could not string passes together and didn't really have our usual fluidity. So if Stoke are going to come to Ewood and just sit back, it could be a very turgid game. So we'll see what we do predictions-wise at the end. So, Harvey, you just touched on it then in terms of players that might cause Rovers some problems. So who are the danger men going to be for Rovers tomorrow? Who are we going to have to watch out for?
Well, I would have said Tyrese Campbell straight away if he was fit to play, but unfortunately he's injured till the end of the season. But danger men, our midfield is one to look out for. Klukas, a top player in this division. If he's on form tomorrow, you're going to have a tough day. Joe Allen, I don't need to say anymore. It's Joe Allen. He's come back off after a 10-month injury, but you wouldn't know. He's just picked his form straight back up from the end of last season, and he's been fantastic the last couple of weeks. Johnny McKell as well. Again, I only need to say his name because you know what you're going to get. But yeah, up front, I'd probably just say watch Matondo's pace because he's one of the fastest footballers in the world.
So talk to us about Matondo then. Have you recently signed him, have you? Is he a youngster? Who is he, just for the Rovers fans that might not know?
Yes, so he's a youngster from Schalke, Welsh international. Came through the academy at Manchester City. Very fast player, so you're going to get a lot of pace down that left-hand side. I think, his end product isn't great, so hopefully we have a decent striker in the middle. But yeah, he's absolutely rapid. If we play him down the middle, he will struggle because in the Bundesliga, there's a lot of bulky defenders, and that's what he struggles against. So hopefully he can just use a bit of trickery down the wing and get it in the middle, hopefully for Jacob Brown to put it away. Yeah,
and my next question at this part was going to be how much have you missed Tyrese Campbell? So you've already talked on it a little bit there. So if you had to reflect on how you played with Campbell versus how you play now, what has the difference been? What does Campbell bring to your side and what are you missing at the moment?
Campbell brought goals, which is really important in football. I'm looking at some games here. Reading 3-0 to Stoke. Huddersfield 4-3 to Stoke. Brentford 3-2 to Stoke. Luton 2-0 to Stoke, etc., etc. when he sort of hit form, we had a very binary start to the season, a lot of 1-0s. But when he hit form, he's a danger. He's just dangerous for defenders. And I think the biggest problem is he's created and scored. Yeah. And if you lose that player, then you're in for a really rough ride. And especially with how those games throughout November and December came about, they were just so... You were playing on a Saturday and you're pretty much off to the next game. They were that thick and fast. But, I think if Campbell had been fit for the remainder of the season, I think he probably would have hit 25 goals, 10 assists, something around that. He was on about 5 assists and about 7 goals, if off the top of my head. So he was on fire. But what happens in football, isn't it? It's a tough game sometimes.
Yeah, it is. You know, we've just welcomed Bradley Dack back into our side after a calendar year out. So it hurts when one of your big players are out. And we've actually, I think, adjusted pretty well to Dack not being around. You know, Armstrong is the one that's stepped up and covered that gap. So we possibly haven't missed it as much as we could have done. I think there's games where it's crying out for a Bradley Dack. But as I say, Armstrong's goals have really helped in that sense. So if we flip it on its head then, Harvey, in terms of areas of weakness, where can Rovers exploit you tomorrow? And then just link to that, injuries have been a big feature of the Championship this season. All teams have had to deal with them. So is there any key injuries or are any key men missing tomorrow apart from Campbell?
Well, if you'd have asked me a few weeks ago, I could have listed you nearly a starting 11 full of injuries that we had just over. Key injuries... Probably say the 2 goalkeepers, although Joe Bursick's come in and done a fantastic job. Adam Davies has been fantastic when he was playing. Angus Gunn has been good too. Suspension, we've got a suspension to James McLean. He broke COVID protocols yesterday, training in a private gym. So he's going to be unavailable. Not that he's been that good anyway this season, but... It's McLean. He can just turn it on at the flick of a light switch. I'm trying to think of some other injuries. Morgan Fox, a left back, but we've just signed Reece Norrington Davies on Tuesday, I think it was. Days are going so fast, I can't even remember what day he signed. But yeah, I don't think off the top of my head, I don't think we're that problematic with problem with injuries. So weakness though. If Tommy Smith is playing at right back, I said throughout the end of last season, I thought he was quite underrated, and I felt he did really well. But this season, he's not been as good. But yeah, hopefully Nathan Collins plays at right back. Tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a surprise, Tommy Smith, that one, because I always remember him, you know, a real core part of that Huddersfield side, wasn't he, that got promoted. So a shame in many respects to see that he's not hitting it off for you guys. So again, if we flip our focus a bit, Harvey, you know, what's your views on Rovers this season? So twofold, you know, just from what you've observed from afar, you know, in terms of how we've done this season, and then in the game that we had against you at the Bet365, you know, what was your assessment of us there?
You've been scoring for fun in some games, especially early on. I think by game week 3 or 4, you had +9 goal difference or something like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Armstrong worries me a lot. I've noticed, is it Tyrese Dolan coming and just done a little bit as well? He's been quite good. And obviously Harvey Elliott, who's been brilliant for you as well. They worry me. Defensively, you seem pretty good too.
I'm sure the Rovers fans will be flooding into the comments, Harvey. Defensively, it's been a mixed bag this season, I'm afraid. We did start the season with a few clean sheets, but defensively, we've struggled at times this season, actually, and we've had some key injuries as well. So in the game at the Bet365, we had Bradley Johnson at centre-back, for example, and that's the area that you exploited. You know, Nick Powell got on the end of that header and exploited that space. You know, it's not Bradley Johnson's fault. He was doing a job there. But we have signed Jared Branthwaite now on loan from Everton, so we're looking forward to seeing him tomorrow. And then just as a final question then, Harvey, this is the part of the show where I do like to, just talk about links between the two clubs, but I struggled last time for Stoke Rovers links in terms of current players who play for Stoke. So instead, because it's January, you've touched on it a little bit, just going to talk about transfer business. So firstly, any signings made, for example, and then any kind of departures, any rumours, what's it looking like this January for Stoke?
I'll try and go in chronological order off the top of my head. So we were linked with Rabbi Matondo from the 2nd of January all the way through over a week, where he did put pen to paper, signed for the rest of the season on loan. Very good signing, if you ask me. Then earlier this week we signed Reece Norrington-Davies on loan from Sheffield United, but he played the first half of the season away at Luton. And then yesterday we signed Jack Clarke on loan from Tottenham, and
that's a good signing.
Yeah, and
good signing.
Some of the stuff he did with Leeds a couple of years ago, he needs no introduction. Outgoings. Tom Ince is linked with a loan move away in Turkey, and departures wise, I think that's pretty much it. As I just run my eyes through the squad, yeah, that's it.
Well, if I was Michael O'Neill tomorrow, the fact that we've got Branthwaite making his debut tomorrow and we have been so patchy in defence, I'm hoping Branthwaite comes in and makes an immediate impact. But if I was O'Neill, I'd be playing Matondo and Jack Clarke and saying, go and run at them. That's what I'd be doing. Just, go for it like that. But that might not be your style. You might be a bit more conservative. You might know that an area of weakness for Rovers this season is when teams do sit back and allow us to have the ball. So maybe it will be that tight game again from Michael O'Neill. So Rovers fans, we have reached the part of the show where we will make our predictions on the game. So I'm going to be asking Harvey for his prediction in a moment. Please let us know yours. Let us know how you think the game is going to go and see if you share my view that it's going to be a turgid game with our state of a pitch at the moment, which I hope can improve, but I can't see how it's going to with the games that we've got coming up. Got 3 out of the next 4 at home, so it might get even worse, our pitch, before it gets better. But I did promise you, Harvey, that the Rovers fans would pick you up on our defence. So, Dizzy Thumbs, come on, Harvey, don't be polite. Alexander Haben, wish we could defend like Stoke. And then Ollie James pointing out that we also had Barry Douglas at right back in our last game as well. So it was very, very patched up in that regard. So, Harvey, I'm going to start with you then on your prediction for the game. How do you think it's going to go? What's your score prediction?
Well, the last 2 visits we've had to Ewood Park, there's only been 1 goal between the 2 games, and it was Peter Etebo where he rocketed it into the top right-hand corner. Good day out. I do have to say it's sort of a good away day, Blackburn is. If we look back to the previous fixture like this, very boring 0-0 just before lockdown, wasn't it? So it's not looking good, is it? Obviously, the game just before Christmas, 1-0. And then I think you beat us in 2018, was it 3-2, where we nearly pulled it?
Oh, that was the Berahino penalty, wasn't it?
Berahino, where he hit it against the bar right at the end. So, in general, it looks to be a bit of a boring game, so I'm going to go 1-0 Joe Allen to score for Stoke.
Joe Allen. That's going to be an intriguing battle tomorrow because we've got Lewis Travis coming back from injury as well, who should start the game tomorrow. So if Joe Allen's come back in and looked like he was never away, certainly Lewis Travis has looked the same. So I look forward to them two probably butting up against each other, actually. And I think Bradley Johnson might start tomorrow as well, just to beef it up in there. My prediction for the game, I've already alluded to it. The pitch is just not going to help us in terms of the style that we want to play. We have struggled at times with possession of the football, which I do expect us to have again. I think that's the approach that Stoke are going to do. And I do just wonder about us having the ability to play some really fluid, effective football. However, what I will say, we have got one moment of magic, I think, in us tomorrow. We've got Rothwell available, we've got Dak available, we've got Harvey Elliott available, we've got Ben Brereton available, we've even got Sam Gallagher available off the bench if needs be, Adam Armstrong. So I think there are options there for us just to nick it. Not going to be the best game. Could have come off someone's backside. I'm going to say 1-0. 1-0 Rovers is what I'm going for. But I think it's going to be a painful watch with our £10 on iFollow, that's for sure. So I hope everyone's ready to be patient.
I'm just looking through your squad now, and just some of the forward options that you've got.
Yeah.
They scare me. You know. As far as I'm aware, Tyrese Dolan has been coming off the bench, and he looks pretty good, doesn't he? Is he a winger or a striker?
He's a winger, definitely a winger, very tricky winger, and one that we've got high hopes for. Bit unlucky this season, Dolan, because he hit the season really well, and then the Harvey Elliott signing came from nowhere, and Dolan's now competing with arguably one of the best 17-year-olds in European football, probably. So unlucky for Dolan, but he's a really nice lad, and I'm sure he'll keep his head down, and we'll see him back in our side, once Elliott's gone back.
That's similar to us with Thibaut Verlinden, very tricky winger, just struggled to get game time this season. His only appearance has come against QPR in a 0-0 where he got 5 minutes. He'd gone on loan to Bolton last season in the early stage of the season, and then came back in the January, sort of being bled into the team a little bit, then got injured against Preston, and that QPR game was his first game back in the back playing. He played in a couple of under-23s games, but the difference between 23s and Championship football is parallel.
That's it. Well, Rovers fans, thank you for all the predictions that have come in. So Mark Whittle is first out of the block, so he's going for 0-0. The stats suggest you might not be wrong, Mark. Dizzy has gone Stoke 2-1. Oh, Dizzy, you've let me down. Sean Hooper has gone 1-1. Alex Isherwood 0-0. Ollie James, turgid indeed, 0-0. Rovers shots 5, 1 on target. Stoke 3 shots, 0 on target. Not one for the neutrals. Alexander Haben, I'm going for an extremely hopeful 2-1 to Rovers. Kevin Bradshaw, 1-0 Rovers. Armstrong, 84th minute. And I think, Kevin, you broke your duck with the predictions, did you not? I think you were worrying about making predictions. Then you did predict a Rovers win against Birmingham, and we got the job done. So good to see Kevin's predictions back in again. Stephen James has gone 3-1 Rovers. Callum Robinson, 1-0 Stoke. And then El Scotty going for 1-1 Branthwaite header. Now that would be a story, wouldn't it? So that's good. So I think we are all unanimous, probably apart from Stefan and Alexander, that it's going to be low goals. I think. Oh, and Dizzy also said Stoke 2-1. So I think we're all expecting a tight, possibly boring affair, which will be in keeping with how it has been between Rovers and Stoke over the years. It just seems to be that's the way the games go. And if our pitch was better, I'd be willing to book the trend, but I just can't see it. I think it's going to be hard. So Harvey, thanks ever so much for joining us tonight. Really, really appreciate your time on this Friday evening, and hope you enjoy the game, but not too much, of course. I
mean, I'll try and enjoy the game.
We'll all try. We'll try our best. Watch it be 3-3 now. That'll be nice. And as a reminder to Rovers fans, we will be back tomorrow, finally, for our pre- and post-match live streams. But as I said at the start of the show, we are going to be premiering a Stats Show special at 12:30 tomorrow. So it will come on a separate link to the pre-match live stream. So check out the Rovers chat page at around 12:30. There'll be a link there to Andy and Joe's Stats Show, which will look at Jared Branthwaite, the new signing. So Joe and Andy have done a really good job with that one, and it's a good half an hour of your time before the pre-match stream. We'll start the pre-match stream about 1:15. We'll be there for the hour as we usually are and get the team news, and then we'll be live after the game as we usually are at about 5:15. Reminder again, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, it is Rovers Chat on YouTube, and please follow us on Twitter, Rovers_chat on Twitter. And Harvey, have a good rest of your evening, and we will leave everyone with a message from our sponsors, 6yardsout.com. See you later, everyone.
See ya.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.